In the midst of a zombie apocalypse, Molly and Nick hit the road and flee the city of Las Vegas. They intend to meet some friends at the airfield where they will take a plane and escape from the zombie army. However, in the middle of the journey, Molly starts to feel unwell, and the two of them have to make a quick stop by the side of the desert. The problem is that as soon as she returns, the rear tire of the car gets stuck in a hole. With no chance of getting it out, Nick then picks up his cell phone and tries to contact his friend Jimmy. But Molly sees that someone is approaching in the distance. When they look closely, they realize it's a zombie dressed in a suit and tie. And walking slowly towards the couple, Nick quickly grabs a pistol from his glove compartment and fires at the creature. But his aim isn't the best. After many shots, he manages to bring the creature down by hitting it in the chest, but the zombie still gets up and follows him with no other choice. The couple return to the car and try to start it, but the wheel is still stuck in the hole now. All they have to do is lock themselves in the vehicle and close the windows while the zombie tried to get through the glass at all costs, but can't. Hours pass and night falls with the zombie still trying unsuccessfully to break the car window. To make matters worse, Nick dropped his cell phone on the floor before getting into the vehicle, and because of this, the couple has no way of calling for help. An argument breaks out between the two, but as soon as they calm down, they notice that the zombie has disappeared. Believing that everything is safe, Molly takes a flashlight from the back seat and together with Nick goes in search of the cell phone. The young woman finds it on the ground near the car and goes to warn her boyfriend, but in a surprise attack, the zombie appears behind Nick and bites his throat. Molly watches in horror, but it's too late and the monster devours her boyfriend completely. She then runs back to the car and fills her backpack with supplies, but just as she is about to flee, the zombie disappears again. However, the creature soon appears right next to her and tries to attack her, but Molly manages to escape through the other door and runs off into the dark desert. Fortunately, she manages to survive until the next morning, but there is still a long way to walk to reach the airfield. What's more, when she checks her backpack, Molly only has a few bottles of water and chocolate bars to last the whole journey. Even so, she continues walking for hours on end, and when night comes, Molly lights a fire to rest. However, the same zombie in a suit that attacked Nick reappears behind her and tries to bite her. Once again, Molly manages to get rid of the monster and runs up a hill, but the effort causes her to fall asleep on a rock. The next morning, the young woman wakes up safely, but next to her is the zombie who tries to reach her but can't climb the rock. Seeing that the zombie is attracted by her scent, Molly takes an item from her pants pocket and throws it away. The distraction works and the monster goes after the object, giving Molly the chance to climb down the rock. But as she does so, she slips and falls backwards onto the ground. The zombie hears the noise and immediately turns its attention to the girl, who is forced to get up and run towards the fire to get her backpack. The monster chases her again, but Molly realizes that the creature is too slow and even begins to mock him. She then continues her journey through the desert, but the zombie continues to chase her without any sign of tiring. As for Molly, after hours of walking, she manages to lose the zombie, but she's almost out of water and exhausted by the heat and fatigue. Then, in the middle of the desert, the young woman finds an abandoned house and goes in to investigate. To her misfortune, the cupboards are empty and there is no water in the tabs, but in one of the rooms there is an old mattress on the floor and she takes the opportunity to rest. However, her rest soon comes to an end when footsteps are heard, and as she feared they are those of the zombie in the suit, the girl flees towards the bathroom and hides behind the shower curtain without making a sound. But the zombie smells her and follows her there. As if the situation wasn't already tense enough, a scorpion appears in the bathtub and starts crawling all over her body. Unable to make the slightest noise, she tries to remain calm and silent until the zombie finally leaves the bathroom, giving Molly the chance to remove the scorpion and crush it. After that, the young woman manages to escape from the abandoned house discreetly and tries to call Jimmy, but her cell phone is still out of range. At the same time, her last bottle of water is about to run dry, and the desert continues in the distance with no sign of a town or village nearby. The girl despairs, but everything gets even worse. When the zombie appears on the horizon, still in search of human flesh, Molly realizes that there is no escape from the creature, so she gathers what what little strength she has left and prepares to face it. She picks up rocks from the ground and throws them at the zombie, but it's not enough to stop it. The only alternative is to use all her strength to hit it in the head, but remembering what happened to Nick, Molly changes her mind and runs away. The chase continues, and the young woman, who can no longer stand the situation, begins to insult the zombie in every possible way. At the same time, she also realizes that his lack of intelligence gives her an advantage, because the zombie can't climb high places with this in mind. Molly climbs up to a cave on top of a hill and rests for a few more hours. The day dawn and Molly goes to check her supplies, leaving only a chocolate, a few sips of water, and a bottle of drink. However, her determination to stay alive still gives her energy, and she continues to fight for her survival. This arduous journey seems to be bringing results at last, as Molly sees on the horizon that the road is getting closer and closer. However, her joy is short-lived when she sees that a huge sandstorm is fast approaching. Molly is forced to retreat, but is soon hid by the cloud of sand which spreads everywhere and impairs her view of her ings. Thanks to this, Molly doesn't notice when the zombie approaches and tries to attack her once again. Despite this, the young woman manages to get rid of her pursuer, but the force of the storm knocks her to the ground and leaves her unconscious. Hours later, the huge cloud of dust dissipates, leaving only Molly, who is still alive. She gets up and, to her surprise, sees a truck passing by on the road and screams as loud as she can for help. The vehicle is parked, and out of it come two friends, Ted and Jason, who immediately give the young woman some water. They then take her back to the car, where Molly tells them that she's on her way to an airfield, but that she's lost her backpack because of the sandstorm. The two friends go to look for the backpack, while Molly can take a real rest for the first time since she met the zombie. She also takes the opportunity. Criminals soon reveal their true nature, with Jason tying the young woman's face with a cloth. Ted then pulls her out of the car and shows her a knife, warning Molly that if she doesn't reveal where the airfield is, he will eliminate her, just as he did with the owner of the car and his son. With no other choice, Molly reveals the location, but that's not enough for the criminals. They take the girl to the back of the vehicle and try to attack her even more. Amidst the desperation of the situation, an unlikely aid appears. The zombie that had been chasing Molly across the desert rises from under the sand and walks towards the car. Jason, who was watching his partner attack the girl, sees the zombie approaching Ted, but there's no time to warn him. Then the creature bites the man's neck and knocks him to the ground, where it begins to devour his face mercilessly. Molly, still shocked by the whole situation, manages to pull herself together while Jason gets back into the car and drives off. This traumatic experience reminds her of moments in her past when she is standing next to a young boy who seems to be her son. Even so, she has no time to lose, as the zombie will soon finish his meal and follow her again. Luckily, as soon as the criminal left with the car, he dropped a box from the body which contained a few more bottles of water and a life raft. Molly quickly inflates the dinghy to load the water bottles into it and heads for the road. It doesn't take long for the zombie to follow her again, but the young woman finds a place with several old tires and has an idea to put her unwanted companion to some use. She puts one of the tires tied to the raft around the zombie's neck so that he can take her supplies wherever she goes. The plan works, and the two make their way through the desert, with Molly taking the opportunity to vent about what happened, and also about her past. Years ago, she gave birth to a boy called Chase, but due to her free lifestyle, she preferred to give her son to her older sister, Allie, as she knew she wouldn't be a real mother to the young boy. During their conversation, the two come across a huge rock, and Molly decides to tie the tire cord to it and leave the zombie stranded in the desert. However, as soon as she does this, the creature tries at all costs to follow her, and this awakens a feeling of guilt in Molly for thinking of abandoning it. In the midst of her crisis of conscience, Molly confronts the zombie, promising to let it go if it learns to behave. She then moves the tire and frees the zombie, which immediately advances towards her, but the young woman promptly shows authority and tells it to stop. Incredibly, the zombie obeys her, and Molly is now in complete control of it. The young woman then sets up another bonfire in a high place, and at dusk she reveals more details of her past to her new friend. She and her son used to play Chinese whispers using two cans tied together with string. However, since she's separated from him, Molly has carried one of the cans with her, and it is the last memory she has of Chase. After telling him all this, the young woman rests. For the rest of the night and the next morning, she and the zombie manage to reach the road. At the same moment, several military vehicles pass by, and fearing that they will eliminate her friend, Molly hides him on the other side of the road. Apparently, none of the drivers seem to have seen the pair. However, one of the vehicles stops in the middle of the road and begins to investigate the scene. The girl then orders her friend to remain silent and goes to talk to the military so that they don't notice the zombie. Molly says she's going to meet her husband at the airfield, which makes the military suspicious, but they allow her to go on her way. Then the zombie disobeys Molly's orders and appears in front of the soldiers, who point their guns in the creature's direction. The young woman, however, stands in front of him and asks the soldiers not to shoot. Seeing this bizarre scene, the guys believe that the zombie is the husband Molly mentioned and decide to clear the way for the two of them. But before they do, one of them shoots the zombie in the leg. Molly is disgusted by this attitude and tries to help her friend up, but the zombie accidentally bites her finger. The young woman knows what this means and runs to her backpack to apply drink to the wound in an attempt to disinfect it. However, she soon notices that the infection is spreading to her finger and that she will soon become a zombie too. In an act of desperation, Molly puts her open hand on the ground and with one of the rocks begins to strike the infected finger until she manages to remove it from her hand. Despite the pain and suffering, the young woman saved herself from infection and then took some adhesive tape from her backpack and made a makeshift bandage on her hand. She then returns to the road, still furious at the zombie for having bitten her, but nonetheless sorry to see it lying wounded on the ground because of the gunshot wound to his leg. The zombie can no longer walk. Apparently abandoned, but she sees a red Cadillac parked in the middle of the site. As she approaches, the young woman hears the sound of a gunshot and runs to hide on the other side of the vehicle. She then sees in the distance that it's Jimmy who's firing, who soon stops firing. When he realizes that Molly is still human, with everything cleared up, the young woman reveals that her boyfriend ended up perishing on the way, and Jimmy says that he also faced zombies on his trip. One of his colleagues was even bitten, but he kept it a secret from everyone, and as expected, he ended up turning into a zombie. He soon infected his friends, except for Jimmy, who managed to stop him and trapped him, along with the other infected in one of the airfield's warehouses. In addition to Jimmy, his mechanic friend Robbie also survived and is finishing repairing the plane to escape the city. Finally, the ship is ready and the three prepare to flee the country and travel to Mexico. However, at the last minute, Molly decides to stay to make sure her sister and son are all right. She goes to one of the airfield stations and tries to call her sister, but the calls go straight to voicemail. Molly fears that the worst has happened, but tries to call once more until she finally hears her son on the other end of the line. The young man tells her that his aunt and adoptive mother has been missing for days and that he has been hiding in his room waiting for her. Molly then promises her son that she will go and get him and asks him to stay hidden until she arrives. With this new motivation, Molly runs towards the Cadillac, but soon realizes that the keys aren't in the car. She then remembers Jimmy's friends who have become zombies and uses a wrench to break the chains and enter the warehouse. Inside, Molly finds one of the infected lying motionless on the floor, but when she searches it thoroughly, she doesn't find the keys. She continues searching until a bearded zombie comes through the door and tries to attack her, but with her wrench, Molly hits him repeatedly on the head until he is eliminated. However, he doesn't have the keys either, forcing the girl to look harder. She enters the boiler room and sees a zombie on his back. But as soon as he turns towards her, Molly is startled and stumbles to the floor, dropping the wrench. The monster then advances towards her and tries to bite her until Molly sees a drill next to her. As she tries to push the zombie away, she reaches out to grab the tool, and as soon as she reaches it, she activates the drill in the middle of the zombie's forehead, destroying the monster and narrowly escaping. After this confrontation, she sets off to inspect his clothes and finally finds the keys to the Cadillac, Molly then sets off at high speed in the vehicle to rescue her son, and on the way she remembers her zombie friend who, in an unexpected way, helped her along this terrible journey. Hours later, Molly finally returns to Las Vegas and finds the neighborhood where Allie lives. Although the place is empty, she quickly arms herself with a shovel and heads towards her sister's house to look for Chase inside the house. Molly sees the whole place turned upside down, and on investigating the kitchen, she finds Allie's husband's body lying lifeless on the floor. The young woman continues to explore the place and sees a message from her sister written in blood on the glass door saying that she had been bitten and needed to put an end to everything on the other side of the door. Molly sees Allie's body, which she set on fire to avoid turning into a zombie and attacking Chase. Now Molly runs to find her son, even though she's devastated by the loss of her sister. But there's no sign of the young man in her room. Desperate, she believes that her son has not survived and cries when she sees the can of the Chinese whispers that the boy has kept all these years. Suddenly, she hears the sound of footsteps, and still holding the shovel, she leaves the room to see who is approaching. But instead of a zombie, she finds Chase's toy tent with the boy hidden inside. Molly is relieved to see that her son is safe and hugs him, promising never to leave him again. The two then prepared to flee the city, but as soon as they descend the stairs, a horde of zombies appear and try to break through the door. Despite this, Molly is undeterred and tells her son to stay behind her as she will protect him no matter what. Finally, the creature managed to get through the door and walk towards the boy and his mother, who promptly attacks one of the zombies with her shovel. Whether Molly and Chase managed to survive the zombie apocalypse remains a mystery. So, what did you think of this movie? Leave it in the comments below. And if you liked the video, like and subscribe for more movie recaps English. See you next time.